Hi, I'm Jane Doyle from The Art of Movement, and this is the instructional video for the high density fascia release ball. This is a picture of your glutes, and it's been layered and cut through so that we can have a little sneaky peek at those really, really deep muscles that we're also trying to release. Now, this great big muscle in here, with a little blue attachment that attaches at the base of the sacrum and to the top of the leg bone, is piriformis. Now, piriformis can give a lot of people a lot of problems. I don't know about you, but when I go to the chiropractor, he cannot adjust my back unless he releases piriformis. So that in my body locks on to stabilize my lower back. I have a lower back injury. So yes, we are trying to release piriformis. You've also got all these other much deeper ones. You've got quadratus femoris, you've got obturator internus, you've got the gemellus superior inferior. They almost, in most anatomy maps, look like they're one muscle and they're not. So the blue is the ligament area. That's the toughest sort of fascial kind of lesion. Then you've got fascia that runs through the belly of the muscle. And then of course your sacrum ligaments. Now over here is your glute. So I get very tight in my glute medius. I do a lot of lunging and those kinds of things. And glute med's job is to stabilize your pelvis while you're standing on one leg. So glute max is your big one, that's over the top. Of course, we're going to dive onto that one. More often than not, most of the population suffers from gluteus magnesia, where their glutes just don't switch on. And often we can't remember how. You see older people when their butts get really flat and weak. Yeah. We want to keep our glutes really strong to stabilize our back, okay, and look good. So I'm diving in to also try and release glute medius, which again, that's the ligament, it attaches onto the top of the leg, and you've got minimus underneath, there we go, and then glute med, and then max over the top. Cool. Now, when we're rolling on this high density ball, be really mindful of your coccyx. This is at the back here, that's at the front. So we don't want to roll on that little bone there because it's very fragile and we don't want to, you'll know if you've ever landed on the ground and landed on your bottom how much it hurts. So we want to stay away from the sacrum, so we just support ourselves as we roll from one side to the other. So this is a release of your glutes. Now, when you've had an episode of lower back pain, your brain thinks that the muscles in your back obviously can't do their job, otherwise you wouldn't have hurt yourself. And your brain actually switches off your erector spinae and all those muscles that run down your back. Kind of goes, right, you guys can't do your job, we're going to take over. Now the muscles that take over are your obliques, your internal external obliques that facilitate the twisting and the side bending. They kind of lock on. It's great, stops you snapping into two, but we need to get those muscles firing again, and we need to release the lock-on muscles. So what we're trying to do technically when we do fascia release is we are trying to start at the origin of the muscle and we apply pressure to it and we like push down into the muscle, and that's going to restrict a lot of blood flow. We hold it there for 30-40 seconds. When we come off that, all this blood races into that area. So it creates circulation, and what you're sort of trying to do is kind of almost like iron out the muscle in a way. So I'm going to move a little bit further down, same thing again, I'm going to hold it, and I kind of repeat this process all the way down towards the attachment. Now, fascia in your body is the second most responsive to pain after your skin. So when you're feeling pain, if we're rolling on a ball, and this is a pretty hard ball, I'll often, if no one has ever sat on this ball before and I know they're going to be loaded, I'm probably going to put them on a slightly bigger, slightly softer ball just to desensitize the area. The idea here is not to put yourself into pain, have your central nervous system flare up and create more problems. So there's no gold medals for enduring pain. It's just, I can smell a martyr burning. So you've really got to listen to your body. I use the analogy, if pain is quite strong, it's almost like a sharp point. And I'll use the ball and I'll roll quickly across the top, like I won't linger on it because it's too painful, to try and almost sort of smooth that point down a little bit. And then I can go back in and apply pressure to it. So no medals for enduring pain. You want something that's comfortable. Don't always assume if you're in great big pain that you're doing great things, okay? So we want to be kind to ourselves. We want to achieve what we want in the nicest way possible. Remember, that area is kind of like if I were to find my hip bone, it's kind of just, on the cheeky part of your bottom. And I'm just going to come and slide onto it. And at first, I'm just going to pop both feet on the ground and I'm really supporting my body weight, just having a quick roll around. Oh, there's my sit bone, so I can find my sit bone. So I'm sort of rolling off to one side of my sit bone. So I'm just smoothing out those sharp, kind of painful bits. I've got lots of, you don't realise how sore you are until you actually sit on one of these balls. Again, if it's too much for you, there's no medals, enduring pain, find something a little bigger and softer, or keep moving around. Now, when I go to hold that ball still in my hip, you want to make sure that the butt cheek that you're stretching, I'm going to bend and drop and relax that leg to the ground. This foot is helping to stabilize me, and I'm going to find a position that's comfortable for my hands and allow myself to breathe and relax. If you get any kind of tingly feeling going down the leg, like you're sitting on your sciatic nerve, just move positions, come off that nerve, maybe try and find a slightly different angle and breathe. And you're going to kind of just repeat this process. As I say, I'm much sorer up into the side of my hip. That's really tender for me. This next exercise complements the glute release really well. It's a hip flexor release. So hip flexor is a term used for a whole lot of muscles that meet in at the front of the hips. We have some sneaky muscles in there, iliopsoas, and iliopsoas attaches to the last 4 discs of the spine and passes through onto the front side of the body. So if that's tight, it's going to pull that back forward. So we want to try and release that. Then we've got a lot of leg muscles coming in. So when I'm guiding someone through this particular fascial release, I'm not necessarily looking to go onto the belly of the muscle. That's pretty painful on the thigh. If anyone's tried to foam roll their legs out and find it's really painful, again, you don't get medals for going through pain. Find something softer. So I'm going to be looking for almost the space in between the muscles. So we've got fascia that attaches the ligaments to the bone and the tendon. That's just a different textured fascia. The fascia then integrates in through the belly of the muscle, around the belly of the muscle. If you see a chicken and that skin on top, and each of the muscles are housed in fascia, and they're technically meant to kind of glide across each other. And what you'll find is that fascia will stick and they won't glide. I don't know if you've ever tried to do side splits, and maybe you've been going to yoga for 100 years and you're never getting any further in that side split. You're not making your chest come to the ground. It's just stuck. And that is the fascia between the muscles is not gliding. All of those muscles attach in at the pelvis at different areas. So depending on the position of the pelvis is how it's going to affect those muscles. So if they're not gliding across each other, your stretching is never going to get you anywhere. So think less about trying to pull and lengthen that muscle and a little bit more about just trying to get in between them and try and pull maybe them apart. So come down. Use your elbows to support you. That'll stop so much weight coming down into the ball. It's pretty dense, okay? It's like rolling on cement almost. Not quite. So when I come down onto the floor, I'm going to position my body so it lands on the ball close to that hip. And I'm going to be using my elbows to try and roll this ball up and down quite quickly, because it's not going to be like cotton wool. It's going to be pretty intense. If you're able to stop anywhere. Now we've got inguinal lines down here and we've got lymph nodes. So just be mindful that if it's not feeling good kind of in close to the groin, don't do it. Let's stay more towards the outside. Think about those muscles attaching in at the pelvis, and we're trying to possibly just sink this ball in between those muscles. Maybe I can use some movement to rock sideways and frontways. If you're game, come over to that IT band. Remember, your iliotibial band makes that knee stay in line with that hip joint. It's going to be a lot harder than a foam roller because it's a circular part that's really pushing into the leg. Tensor fascia latae is this little kind of oyster muscle at the top, and then your IT band runs down and attaches at your knee. It kind of starts thin, branches out, comes back in at the knee. It's kind of the consistency of packing tape. It's a lot more painful for me in the center of my leg than it is at the attachment of my knee and my hip. So again, be mindful. There's no medals for enduring pain. I'm going to support myself on my elbows. I'm also going to use my other knee to keep me lifted, so a lot of weight's not going to be going down onto the ball because hip flexors are usually pretty tight. Coming down, I'm going to place that ball really close to my hip bone, and I'm just going to use my elbows to slide myself up and back, up and back. And I'm kind of working my way to the outside of the leg and working my way to the inside of the leg. And I'm finding lots of spots. So I'm going to sort of start at the top, take a big breath in, and then I'm just going to relax my body down onto the ball slowly. And yes, if you can get super relaxed, just try and get heavy on the ball. And breathe. And I might even get a bit of a wiggle because I'm trying to come in between those two muscles. And I'm going to repeat that process a little bit further down the leg. And I'm almost, oh, okay, TFL, there we go. Whew, right on there. So the technique is going to be roll, 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 smooth out that point, find a spot, see if you can relax onto it, breathe, move, let all that blood flow come into that little area that you're working on. Obviously there's no blood flow in fascia, but lubrication. So if you've seen pictures of fascia times by 100, it almost looks like spider web or snot. It kind of re-sticks against itself and it's really wet and sticky and slimy. And then you kind of see fascia that looks like dried snot. So we want the sticky, smooth kind of fascia. This next release is fantastic if you sit to a computer a lot, drive a lot, find yourself looking at your device all the time. When your head drops forward, your shoulders come with it. They're joined. You've got this muscle that attaches at the side of the neck called levator scapula and that attaches in at the shoulder. So think of your head like a bowling ball. If you were to hold a bowling ball out, it would be quite heavy, and after a while, your arm would start getting fatigued. It would get really tired and it would come down. So imagine your head is the bowling ball and that muscle is hanging off top of the shoulders. So you'll find that trigger release. I actually use a different ball for that, but that's over in the fascia stretch therapy course and not right here for this one. It's also really awesome for chest and shoulder. So it's just the perfect size and density. So same thing again, I'm going to be using this arm on the ground. So if you think about posture, if my shoulders come forward, my head will come forward. If my head comes forward, my shoulders will come forward. So remember, posture is very much about not making your muscles work really hard. My head is quite heavy. If I prop my head in line with my spine, then my muscles in my neck get to relax a little bit more and you're not hanging off your spine. You know, if you imagine a tent with a tent pole, your spine is your tent pole. So everything's hanging off one side. So you need that tent pole to be really strong. All this front stuff is going to get tight and short, posterior chain gets long and weak. So we're going to be placing that ball. Now, we've got delts across the front, and I know for me, when I get internally rotated, my front delt gets really quite tender, and I can feel fascial knots in that front shoulder quite easily. And then pectoralis minor and pectoralis major, okay? Again, you don't really need to know where they attach and they originate. You just want to be gauging what it's feeling like in your body. So we're going to be placing that ball into the front, releasing pec minor, pec major, and also doing some mobilization with that shoulder to also release part of your rotator cuff. I'll often describe rotator cuff, two muscles, two from the back, two from the front, meeting in at the front. Now, if these front ones get really tight, it's going to lengthen the back ones, it's going to shorten these front ones. So we work to strengthen these, pull these back, we work to release these to make a happy shoulder. It's very problematic. Shoulders and hips are all held in by muscle alone. So we need to look after them and keep them yummy and juicy and lubricated. So come on down onto the ground and we'll go through releasing the chest. That's strong. So the technique is going to be roll, 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 smooth out that point, find a spot, see if you can relax onto it, breathe, move, let all that blood flow come into that little area that you're working on. Obviously there's no blood flow in fascia, but lubrication. So if you've seen pictures of fascia times by 100, it almost looks like spider web or snot. It kind of re-sticks against itself and it's really wet and sticky and slimy. And then you kind of see fascia that looks like dried snot. So we want the sticky, smooth kind of fascia. Come down onto the ground. I'm going to use my elbows to support me, slide down onto my knees, and I'm just going to place it on the inside. I'm using my other hand to move it around. And I can use that arm to just use the ball to friction the front of my deltoid. I'm going to come into pec minor. And try and relax down onto the ball. I'm going to hold that for about 30-40 seconds and then we're going to move. So I've just found a really nice spot at the very top of my deltoid where it's attaching into the front of my shoulder. And I'm just sort of frictioning my tendon head. And then I'm going to let it sit. Hi, I'm Jane Doyle from The Art of Movement, and thanks for tuning in to the high density fascia release instructional video. I am Movement Maker up on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, Twitter and all of that social media. I've got loads of free videos up online, aerial classes, yoga flow classes, gyrotonic, Pilates, fascia release. If there's a video I haven't done and you'd like one, let me know and I'll be happy to do it for you and pop it up. And one of the great things about this ball, because most of my clients that buy balls, if they've got a dog in the house, the ball has a lifespan, which is usually pretty short. This ball is so dense, it would take a staffy a good afternoon to work his way through this ball. And even then he might break his teeth. So there's a tiny bit of air inside and it weighs about 450 grams. So we try to use as little amount as plastic as possible and try and pump some air into it so it's got a little bit of give but it's not too heavy. So my ball.